Good morning, everybody. Republican candidate for United States Congress in Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District, Michael Alfonso, is our very special guest today. Friday, October 31st, Halloween, 2025. I'm Ben Dryden, and you are watching DrydenWire Live, presented by Northwoods Policy Network. Folks, there's something new coming to the Northwoods this fall, and it's called the Northwoods Policy Network. NPN is the premier Northwoods First policy and advocacy organization. They exist not only to educate and offer real solutions for a stronger future, but to make sure those solutions are heard by decision makers. To watch their full launch video and stay connected, visit northwoodspolicy.org. With that, we welcome our guest today, the third Republican candidate to announce their campaign for United States Congress in Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District, Michael Alfonso. Michael, good morning, sir.
Well, thanks for having me, Ben. You mentioned Halloween. It's a Christian holiday. People don't know that. It's a Christian holiday.
Okay, now you have to tell me more because I literally did not know that.
Oh, from the times of the Middle Ages, the Christians were the ones that invented dressing up as, scary things to ward off evil spirits. So a lot of
What?
people think it's a pagan holiday. No, it has 100% Christian roots.
I now I'm gonna have to look into that. I did not know that. I was actually going to ask you, did you ever go trick or treating when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, all the time. I have some horror stories of when I was going to be a werewolf and I told my parents I will not be cold, so I didn't wear a shirt. I was freezing the whole night and they said, "Well, you said you weren't going to be cold."
Come to find out, our parents aren't stupid. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
You
usually
figure
just
that out a little later in life, but yeah.
you do. Right, like at 25, all of a sudden that frontal thing all of a sudden kicks in, and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, my parents are right about everything.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, so you've announced that you're running for Congress. We can get in all of that, but as always, anytime we have someone on, especially the first time, is to really kind of get to know the person. So let's just start kind of from the beginning. Where were you born and raised? Let's just start going through your life and what led up to your decision to run for Congress.
Well, I was actually born in Chicago, Illinois, and we moved to Vilas County, Land O'Lakes, when I was about 2 years old. So from about 2 to 12, we lived up there. I was a huge fisherman. I hunted sometimes. I was a bird hunter. So we would go up to Park Falls and hunt grouse. And after that, I went to Wausau, where I went for middle and high school. And that's where I met my wife, Avita Duffy. And after that, I went to college in UW-Madison. That was a lot of people say the college experience is a lot of fun. I didn't really feel it. While I was there, we had COVID. And even worse than that, the Badgers were ranked fourth in the nation and we lost to BYU. I will never forget it.
Oh, gee.
Yep. 102 degrees in the stadium. Kids were dropping like flies and we lost.
Oh,
But after college, I went and I came back to Hayward. I worked construction and I was working construction during college a lot too. But then I got an opportunity to work for Dan Bongino. I was his producer for his podcast and
yeah.
his radio. So it's weird
Yeah,
to
that
be on
was
the
big.
other end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was big. Yeah, and I
yeah.
suppose that is a little odd for you because you were the producer role and now you're the hosting, or not the hosting, the guest. That must be kind of weird.
I'm not a huge fan of being in front of the camera. I like being the secret tech guy on the other side that no
Yeah.
one sees about.
Yeah. Let me go back here. So I wrote down Lilas. First of all, born in Chicago. What led you to Lilas County? And Lilas, or not Lilas,
Vilas.
Vilas County. That's like as far north as you can pretty much get in the northeast part, isn't it? Isn't that like bordering right on, not Canada, isn't that the UP?
Michigan. Yeah, so it's so close to Michigan that our home Catholic parish was actually in Michigan. We would it was my parents didn't love the church that was in our area, so they actually drove 30 minutes, but turns out 30 minutes was the Michigan border.
Yeah. Seriously, yeah, you can't really get further north. What led your family from Chicago to Vilas County?
They saw the writing on the wall. I mean, you look at Chicago now, they knew it was coming 25 years ago. So they saw what was happening and, they were lucky enough to be in a position where they could just pick up and move. And they had always loved the North Woods. I guess my dad had been coming up here for a while and he's like, I know the perfect place for our family where we can raise our two little kids. And boy, was he right. It was quite the experience.
My entire family, my mom was born in Cook County, so obviously that's in Chicago.
Crook County. We call it Crook County. Because
All my family's from there. My brother, and my sister were born there. And I think my mom told me the story once that they decided that they wanted to move because I hadn't been born yet, but they decided to move because I think my mom's sister's kids, so my cousins, they had these bracelets on. And they were not name ID. And she said, "Oh, I get bracelets, like a name ID bracelet." That was a thing back when we were younger. She said, "No, no. What these are is if you get kidnapped, you unhook those so they drop to the ground, and the bottom says that I have been kidnapped, and here's all the number and stuff." She goes, "And that's when we knew, and we're moving." So they ended up moving
yeah.
to Washburn County here, and that's where I was born. But yeah, it's I loved Chicago when I was young, and going back and visiting. But that place is a dumpster fire. It just is. I went back a couple years ago, and I'm like, this is not the Chicago. It used to be the pull yourself out by bootstraps and blue collar, and now, like, I don't even recognize it anymore. When's the last time you went back?
So my wife Avita actually went to college there. So when I was at Madison, I was driving back and forth all the time.
Sure.
I hate Chicago. I mean, I'll give Chicago a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. She went to school on the South Side in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the city. So it was brutal, but we went downtown sometimes. I could not have been less impressed. I mean, you can't drive anywhere, you can't park anywhere, and public transit. She had a friend, not a friend, but another student at her school got shot on the public transit and died. So
No.
I've never been interested in that. I'll take
Yeah.
my car and a 2 hour commute.
Exactly. So then, what you said 2 to 12 about in Vilas County, and what led you guys to Wausau?
Well, Vilas County, specifically Land O'Lakes, it had a paper mill. When we moved there, it was everything was going great. And '08, the housing crash, the community really shrunk a lot. And my family moved to Wausau for jobs.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we already know the answer to this. Bears or Packers fan? Uh,
So it's a good question. And I will tell you, I've always loved the Packers, but I don't hate the Bears. It's an
Thank you, because I'm
important
a Bears fan
distinction.
too. I am. I am.
I am ashamed to admit it. There was a game when I was a freshman in college between the Bears and the Packers, and I may or may not have bet for the Bears, and boy, did I get punished. That was the one where Rodgers came back in like the third or fourth quarter and led the comeback.
I mean,
I'll never
which
bet
time?
against him.
Which time that
Yeah,
happens so many times. And honestly, the only reason I'm a fan of all the Chicago sports is simply because, again, all my family's from there. So when the Bears still suck, yeah, whatever. They
they
do.
do.
They do. That is a fact. But when they would send, like, my grandmas, and would send Christmas gifts, and it was always like Cubs paraphernalia and Bears stuff. So I just kind of grew up that way. Uh, so you left Wausau, not left, but after high school in Wausau, then you go to UW Madison. What did you go to study for?
So I went to study math, and it sounds a lot more impressive than it is.
It
Really, I
does
just
actually
showed
sound
up on
impressive.
I showed up on campus. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Math was, it was just a very broad one, so I could take a lot of electives that I wanted to take, so like physics, like econ.
Sure.
But really, the main kicker for deciding the math major was this liberal arts stuff at UW-Madison is a nightmare. I mean, that's where you see all the problems with whiteness classes and inherent racism, and I just didn't want anything to do with it. So I found the major that would have the least amount of
Sure.
that junk possible.
That's actually not a horrible idea. Yeah, I did. So what was college like? Because we hear these stories. So we little older folks, right? I'm at that age now where I'm just an old, ratchety, old, cranky old man. But we hear all the stuff about how colleges and it's indoctrination and but you literally went through it and recently. I mean, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
So what was it actually like there when people say, uh, usually it's Republicans, to be honest, usually is, they say this is like indoctrinating our children and it is terrible. What was it really like? I mean,
You
are any of those
know,
things true or is it exaggerated in the media and from the Republican Party?
oh, it's not exaggerated at all. And the really deceptive thing about it is I think people from the outside think these teachers are walking into the class and telling you there's only one way to think. This is how you're going to think. If you want an A on the paper, you have to think this way. And I'll admit there's a little bit of that. But where it really tricks you is, when I first showed up on campus, you had to attend these mandatory lectures where it was like, don't drink in college, make sure you're not having sexual assault problems. But there was another one that was about like diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was mandatory for every single freshman. And you have to go on campus and they get you with the question whenever you don't know anyone in this class. It's a small group for Madison, it's like 20 people.
Hmm.
And they'll say, give us your name, your pronouns, and where you're from. And as an 18-year-old kid on campus, you say to yourself, I don't want to be the one kid who goes up here and says this pronoun stuff is stupid because everyone else before you does it. That's how they trick you into falling into this. It's a little more subtle than you would think. And I'll be honest, I did say my pronouns because I didn't want to be the odd man out, but I couldn't have been more ashamed of that moment. And afterwards, I remember talking to Avita because we were dating at the time. Same thing for her at U Chicago, and we said we will never do that again. I don't care if it costs us friends or whatever.
Hmm.
And it turns out that actually by being a brave person on campus, and this is the message to younger people if they're listening, if you're brave all the time, it might be difficult in the beginning, but you'll find a group of friends that will last a lifetime. And I'm lucky to say that that's what happened to me.
Hmm. Would it be fair to categorize that or classify that kind of as a, a, a normalizing it?
Yeah, it's like almost like they trick you into it. Oh, it's no big deal. Just say your pronouns. And it's these little subtle language changes so that when you're a junior in college and they tell you all the problems with whiteness, you're just completely ready to buy anything they're putting down.
Interesting. I want to talk a lot more about that, but we have more to get to. But no kidding, that stuff's really fascinating to me because you just went through it not that long ago. But let's keep going. So then you said you ended up in Hayward. So
Yeah,
what did you end up getting? Did you get your degree in math?
I did. So it was a very jump around process. So between my freshman and sophomore year, I actually dropped out of school. I had had enough of the nonsense on college campuses. I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to do construction. That's what I've been doing. These guys are making a great living. Why go into, debt or work so hard to get through college without debt, which is what I did. But I dropped out. I missed the first semester of my sophomore year. And my wife, Avita, we were very serious at the time. And she told me, look, you got to do this. God gave you talents. Don't walk away from something that you have the ability to do because it's not going to hurt you at the very least. So I went back to school, but it's a long way to say I married Avita while I was still finishing up the final semester of my senior year. So she was writing for the Federalist, which was a remote job, a conservative
Mhm.
newspaper or publication online. And it was the middle of the Biden admin. It was 2022. We didn't know what we wanted to do. We said, why do we go to Hayward? It's the one of the most beautiful counties in the seventh district. I will say it's amazing, Sawyer County. And we came there, and I told her, okay, I'll do construction for a little bit longer. I've never minded it, and we did that, and that's when we got the crazy opportunity to work with Dan.
Uh, uh, when did you meet Avita?
I met Evita in eighth grade.
Oh, snap! That's awesome.
Yeah.
So this is like a high school sweetheart kind of a thing.
So kind of. We were always really, really
Hold on a
good
second. Remember,
friends.
she may be listening to this at some point. So,
She's definitely listening.
okay. Uh,
So that's why I got to make sure to tell the truth because she always tells a little bit worse of a story if you ask her. But
sure.
I would say that we were really good friends all the way through high school, but we never actually dated in high school. So it was
Oh, okay.
right after it was actually prom senior year. I took her to prom. That was when it started getting more serious, and we didn't start officially dating till the summer after senior year.
Okay. And then you guys went to different colleges. Were you the same grade?
Yep. Yep, same
Yep.
grade.
So
Yep.
different colleges, but then kept. I get it now. So you end up back in Hayward, and then the podcast opportunity. Where did you do that from? Could you do that from Hayward?
No. So we moved to Florida for a year. We were working with Dan in
Ugh.
Florida. It was brutal. I don't know how I know there's a lot of Wisconsin residents that split time. I hated it. Even in the peak of winter, it's 70 degrees and you're sweating. I don't know how anyone can tolerate it. Avita's a little bit of a lizard, so she loved Florida. She loves the heat. I don't know how she does it, but yeah, we went to live in Florida for a year and it was a crazy time. I mean, I got to work in media. I started, I think, 2 weeks before Donald Trump got shot. So I've never been in a more high,
Mm.
high intensity environment. Trump got shot. Biden dropped out of the race. We had the RNC. Trump's getting shot at a second time, and then there was the election. It was a really crazy time to work in media, and it was a lot of fun.
And you did that for how long?
About a year,
About a
maybe a
year.
little under a year. Yeah.
Yeah, and what does he do now? He's a deputy. What does he do now? Dan.
Deputy director of the FBI.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
So
when Dan left, we Dan is such an amazing guy to be around. When he left, Avita and I just kind of decided we were going to do something else. So we actually came back to Hayward again.
yeah, sure, sure. So that was just recently. When did you guys move back to Hayward?
We moved back to Hayward in June of this
Got
year.
it. So you were only gone for about a year, and then came
Yeah.
back. And
Yep.
what have you been doing since? Or was that? How about you ask this? So if that was just in June, we're in October. Obviously, it was like one of the worst kept secret. Well, not worst kept secrets because it wasn't. I think some people get that wrong. They think that Tom Tiffany was going to be announcing his run for governor for a long time, but I'm under the belief that he was putting himself in a situation where he could make that decision. Where if I do, then it's all lining up. But I don't think he made it until a lot closer to his actual announcement than people may think. But you probably heard that as well. At what point did the 7th Congressional District, a run for that seat, enter your mind?
It couldn't have been much more than like 2 weeks before Tom actually announced,
Sure.
And I actually had a job lined up to work in the White House. So I was going to work for the DFC, the Development Finance Corporation, which is a fancy name for a subdivision under the Treasury. And the job hadn't started because the guy who was going to head the agency couldn't get through the Senate process. So up until about 2 weeks ago, he wasn't confirmed. So we were just kind of in a limbo. And I saw an opportunity to where I think I could represent my home where I grew up and really bring some amazing changes so that more young people could come back to the area so that the older generation could actually see their kids. They're not going off to Chicago, New York, LA for opportunity. And
Hmm.
that's really what made me want to kind of jump in the race. And not to mention, it was right after Charlie Kirk got shot. I the first thing anyone will say about me is he's 25 years old. He's a little young to be running for Congress. Maybe so. But after Charlie Kirk got shot, it became very clear that, it's time for people to step up. It doesn't matter about age and experience, it's about character and conviction. And let's be honest, age and experience, who is that? Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer? I mean, come on, it's not exactly doing us any benefits here.
I'm gonna guess that you're gonna be saying that same line to a lot of other places that you go. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's pretty good. We hold on, it's here. Tamara has just tuning in. Are you married to Avita Duffy? Yeah. I asked because I did a photo shoot with her and her puppy Pippi. It was set up with me by her aunt Karen. If this is the same Avita.
Yes, it is the same Evita, and Pippi is still alive. She's 17 years old. She's a
Oh,
little
sheesh.
chihuahua. She's at the end of a very long, good life, but she is still kicking and doing really well.
That's fantastic. What are the odds? Small world. So you had talked about 25, but let me go. You had brought up Charlie Kirk. This is another one of those things where we can see polling, we see media reports. about you young kids and the young Republicans. I see things all the time that says that one of the largest growing of voter bases has been young Republicans. You were on campus at UW Madison. Your wife was in Chicago at college as well. Did you see this? Is that true? When you're down there, did you see this stuff, or was it only after Charlie Kirk died? What has been leading to this, and did you actually witness this stuff?
I did witness it. It's especially prevalent with young men because, we were the ones that they were telling, if you're a white, straight male, you are the worst thing that society has ever produced. And there's a little bit of a pushback on that. And frankly, we're the generation that was coming into adulthood under the first Trump administration. I was 16 when he was elected his first time. So I'll admit I didn't vote for him, but only because they wouldn't let me. But
Nice. Yeah.
but yeah, we noticed that a lot. And if you look from 2020 to 2024, men 18 to 29 shifted almost 20 points for Donald Trump. And it's an important distinction. They didn't shift Republican, they shifted Donald Trump. And Donald Trump he's got a certain way about him where he's not your average Republican.
Mm-mm.
Is he Mitch McConnell? Absolutely not. And the younger generation is not interested in voting Democrat or Republican. They're interested in voting for a set of ideas. And whichever candidate will put those forward, that's who they're going to vote for. And I did see that shift a lot.
Why do you think that's the case? Why is that?
I think it's just that when things are brutal, I mean, during the Biden administration, everything was tough. Young people out of college couldn't find jobs. I saw something, maybe I'm getting the numbers wrong here, but of the college graduates from last year, 60% did not find a job. That's all aftermaths from the Biden administration. And it's a nightmare what's happening to them, and they're giving pushback. And in a weird way, you'd think young people would turn radical to some new set of ideas like communism, which there is a little bit of that coming from our generation, but there's a lot of people who are actually just prescribing going back to the good old fashioned stuff. Get married young, have kids, start a family, work hard. That's what I'm prescribing. I'm not prescribing a new set of ideas. I'm prescribing we go back to the 1950s ideas, which is what made America great in the first place.
Mm. We have a question here from Emily Gall, our good friend Emily. I want to hear how something positive informed your worldview. What inspires you to serve people outside of culture war talking points?
Something positive that influenced my worldview. Well, I think, just off the top of my head, one of the most positive things I saw was Trump getting elected the first time. Everyone said he couldn't get elected. Even the polling right up to the day of the
I
election
remember.
said, doesn't matter. And there was a little bit of a feeling of sadness or depression from people who wanted to see a change. And we actually got it. For once, it seemed like the people actually beat the machine. And that's why the young people are so excited to vote for Trump a second time or a third time, really, if you count 2020 and
Well,
2024,
right.
three times.
Yeah, that is true. Obviously, right now, with the government shutdown, enhanced, what is it? Obamacare subsidies, but it's the enhanced premium tax credits.
Yep.
If you,
ACA. Yeah.
yeah, if you were there, what would you do?
You know, I mean, this shutdown is about, the Democrats say it's about subsidies for healthcare.
Mhm.
In my opinion, it's about holding the country hostage to make sure illegals have healthcare. And this is not the way we do it. We're Americans. We don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't get to just hold the entire country hostage. EBT credits are about to run out. Democrats do not care. They're apparently the party of the working class and, lower class. What are we talking about? They couldn't care less that EBTs are running out and that average workers aren't getting paid. If they want to see any type of working across the aisle on healthcare, which again is a huge deal. I've seen how expensive healthcare is. Believe me, I want to see the prices go down as much as anyone, but this isn't the way to do it. Open the government up, and then we can talk about working across the aisle.
Yeah. So the uh, just kind of recap the enhanced, essentially Obamacare tax credits. That was established back in what 2021
Yep.
during COVID because of the what was happening in the health crisis, as it was referred to as, uh, to make it easier or cheaper for people healthcare. Which honestly, I totally understand that, right? I just absolutely do. And then I think it was extended again the next year. I think in 2022 with an inflation act, and that's what was the thing that was put in. They extended it to December 31st, 2025. Honestly, I didn't love that part. I think it should have just been one more year. Extended it 3 years because now you're getting 4 years worth, and that's going to be a tough sell to now everybody's used to it, right?
Yeah.
And it's
And
oh, that's a really tough sell to kind of say no because now that's just it. Let me ask you this question: assuming for a moment in this scenario, which is a likely scenario, that the enhanced premium tax credits don't get extended, either through the government shutdown or if they come back and then try to figure something out before the end of the year. Let's assume for a moment it doesn't happen and it goes back to what it just originally was. How concerned are you that this is going to be? How much you guys are going to get hit? Republicans, you and other Republicans, are going to get hit on this in next year's election.
you know, everyone always asks that. You might get hit next year for an election for this. That's the whole problem with politicians right now. All they think about is getting reelected down the line. That
That's
shouldn't
true.
come into the calculus of any decision ever, and it never will if I'm elected. I'm going to do the right thing. The country is completely bankrupt. We're peaking in at $40 trillion. This is a number that most people can't even conceptualize.
No.
It's such a ridiculously high number. I'd have to count how many zeros are in it. We need to get the government on back on track. Regardless of what happens with voting later on, if you get elected, it's not about you. It's about your kids in 10 or 20 years. And that's how they should be thinking, and they're not.
Looking at your, there's two other people that are have announced in the Republican side for the 7th Congressional District. Whether it's your primary opponents or media, or maybe your general election opponent, if you get the nomination in the Republican Party in August, what are they going to go after you for? You mentioned the age. Is that going to be something that you've identified as, well, I'm sure they're going to try to go after me because I'm sure you've thought about this. Right, a couple of
Yeah.
things that, yeah, we just know this is what they're going to, because that's just how this stuff works, man. So, what have you identified are those things are going to be?
Well, like you said, age, they're going to hit me on age. The founding fathers wrote the Constitution and said 25-year-olds can run for office, and they let the people decide. I ask, let me prove it. This is a very long campaign. Even the primary isn't until August. I'm going to prove it to voters that I'm not just some 25-year-old kid. No, I'm someone who's married for almost 4 years. I'm someone who's worked their whole life. I've been working since I was 14. I'm going to show them how I'm going to represent them if elected during the campaign. We're going to go to all the 26 counties. We're going to meet everyone. We're going to, in other words, we're going to shake some babies and kiss some hands, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah. Nice. That's funny.
I just, the age thing is something from the outset. Everybody's going to throw it at me, and it's not something that concerns me because we're going to run a campaign to prove to the voters how we're going to represent them, and you'll see that go by the wayside real quick.
All right, we have another question in here. How do illegals obtain health care? I have not been convinced that Democrats are promoting health insurance for illegals, especially criminal illegals.
Yeah, so this is something that hasn't been thrown out there a lot. They get it through emergency care. So, yes, when if you have, an issue, say you have a toothache, you go into the dentist and you say, "I need, help getting this tooth fixed." They'll give you a bill. And they'll even turn away people who don't have health care coverage.
Mhm.
But if you go to an emergency care unit, they have to, by law, service everyone. And that debt goes on to the illegal, and it ends up getting wiped by the government. There's tons of programs that these illegals can apply for to get it wiped. And that's how it's really affecting us. And, I'm sure someone will say, how much does this really affect people? We can't just, not help anyone who shows up to the emergency room. Look, I mean, it's billions of dollars a year. It's not something to turn your nose at. It's a very concerning number. And really, where that problem comes from is the southern border. We didn't close it. Now we have all these people here. We need to focus on closing that border. And Trump's done a really, really good job. So now, as soon as that's done, we need to focus on getting the violent criminals out. Once we do that, now we can have discussions about all the rest of it.
I want to. Okay, I'm gonna get my laptop out. I went to your website this morning. I just want to go through a couple things that I saw on there. What are so you announced on Wednesday, just 2 days ago.
Yep.
What have you done up until now in terms of have you gone out and talked to people yet, or is your campaign like going out into the seventh? It's a very large geographical district. Have you started any of that yet, or is it still the behind the scenes stuff?
It's behind the scenes. So we're going to launch this stuff. We've been meeting with tons and tons of people, but not really in giant group settings. We was just kind of, making sure that everything was prepared for when we launch, and we're still getting things prepared now. It's a tough process, but we're going to start going to all the counties right now. We're going to start talking to all the real voters. We got a chance to talk to all the elected officials, and that's great. There's some really great elected officials, but that's not what matters. We want to talk to the voters. We want to get our ideas out to them, because that's, like you said, how we prove we're not just some 25-year-old kid. We want to
Yeah.
shake everyone's hand and talk to everyone. And honestly, we want to hear their concerns. Anything concerning them, we don't know everything. And we want to hear from the voters. Hey, what's hitting you at home? I think this is what's hitting me, but we want to hear what's happening to them too.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the stuff that you talked about, I mean, that's how you launch a campaign, though. So it is needed and it is smart because, believe it or not, a lot of people don't do that. I shouldn't say a lot. Not everybody actually has all those conversations before you announce, because that's just, again, that is how you do it. Anyway, so I went to your website this morning right before the show. It's alfonso4wisconsin.com. Alfonso, then the 4 is FOR. Alfonso4wisconsin.com. And under your issues tab, we have a whole bunch of stuff in here to encourage people to go there to learn more about you. But bring back freedom in education. This is under one of your issues. Parents, not bureaucrats, should decide what's best for their children. Michael Alfonso will support school choice, boost homeschooling protections, and end Marxist race and gender indoctrination in classrooms. We kind of touched on the last one earlier, but I want to go to the boost homeschooling protections. I did not realize that was a thing. I'm ignorant on this, so please talk to me like I am ignorant on this. I don't know anything about it. Are people that are homeschooling not getting protections now? Therefore, we need to boost them? What is that situation?
So it's not that, I guess we want to protect homeschooling. And it becomes more and more difficult as property taxes rise, as more and more money goes to the public schools. It becomes even harder for parents to homeschool their kids. It's no easy feat. I know that. I was actually homeschooled until seventh grade. And I would like to see in a perfect world, I would like to see the money from taxes follow the student, not go to a school district. I would like to see homeschoolers get the same benefit of school choice as any other student. If you want to be schooled at home, what's the problem? Maybe we have them take some state tests to make sure they're actually getting taught at home. But I would really like to see the money follow the student.
And how are you going to get that done? Because it's a popular belief by a lot of people, and it doesn't always necessarily work that way.
Yeah. And it is mostly a state level issue. And we want to work with the state level people to help get that stuff through. As a federal congressman. Maybe I won't get to vote on all the things that I would really, really like to vote at, but we can be outspoken about what we think the correct cause is. And that's something that I want to take everywhere. Doesn't matter if it's a state or federal issue, we're going to let the voters know what we think, and we're going to try to help encourage everyone to be pushing for the right ideas, regardless of where the decision is made at what level.
Uh, Speaking of the federal versus kind of the state, because it's the role you're representing Seventh Congressional District, but it's in Congress, but it's still so it's kind of bizarre. I mean, not bizarre. It's just there's two things you always have to kind of keep in mind. On the topic of abortion, do you think that should be a state issue, or do you think the federal government should have an actual stance? Because you could make an argument, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, that leaving it to the states has you can make the argument that it's been good, and you can make an argument it's been bad, depending on which state and which side that you actually view on that. Do you think it should be a national? This is what it is. This is the rule. This is the policy. This is where we stand on it as a country, or do you think that should be state rights?
Well, let me start by saying I'm 100% pro-life. I mean, I married into the Duffys. They got 9 kids, right? That's I could not be more
Fair enough.
pro-life. But I will say that I'm also a realist, okay? A lot of the country isn't where I'm at. And I think passing a federal abortion ban is something that's very, very difficult in the near future. And I think bringing it to the state level was one of Donald Trump's greatest achievements. He was able to put in 2 Supreme Court justices that were able to overturn Roe v. Wade. And if you look at it as a whole, are more babies being aborted or less? Far, far less. So I am a huge fan that we got it to the state level.
Mm.
And we need to do everything we can to get Tom Tiffany elected and our local and state senators, assemblymen elected, because I have faith in the people of Wisconsin that when it comes to making a decision, they will make the right one.
Why do you say Tom Tiffany? There's another candidate, and as of now, there's 2 candidates in the Republican race. You're saying Tom Tiffany. Is that just simply because he is? I mean, you have to say that because he's the 7th congressional district representative now. I'm like, you have to say that, right?
Well, I mean, you could say that if you're cynical, but I know Tom. Tom's a great, great guy. He is a hometown hero. He's a rock star. And, you know, I know there's another guy running in the governor's race. Not interested. Tom has proven it with his voting record. Anyone who has any doubts about Tom, about anything, go look up his voting record. And I promise you, those doubts will be put to rest. He is a rock star and he will make the right decision at the state level. We just have to work to make sure he gets elected.
Well, we try not to compliment him too much on the show. I was kidding. He comes down once a month. He's always been very respectful and great to me personally and to my family and to DrydenWire. Seriously. So I have zero issues with Tom. You would mention Duffy. I don't know. He's like 14 jobs right now. Your father-in-law, Sean Duffy. Is that something that you think or somebody or people have told you that may end up being used against you as well? I would think that's kind of weird because from a Republican standpoint, in a primary, I would think that would probably help more than hurt simply because a lot of people know him and a lot of people voted for him. He won by very large margins when he ran. So maybe the general, that could be a thing. Are you concerned at all about that? The labels that we put on, maybe even throwing out the word nepotism. Are you worried about that?
No, we're not worried about that because, like I said, nobody's going to walk into the 7th district with name recognition and win a race. These voters are smart. I've been around them my whole life. They want to see someone who's going to work hard for them in the campaign, work as hard for them in the campaign as they will in office. And you can't just win a race by walking into it and hoping for the best. You have to prove it to every single one of those voters. And that's what we're going to do. So that it doesn't worry me. Sure, maybe someone will toss it at me as a way to attack me. I couldn't care less. These voters are smart. You have to prove it to them, and we are going to.
That is true. In northern Wisconsin, it is so. It just is different from other parts of the state. I talked to other people from the southern part of the state, or even in the eastern part of the state, and they all recognize too. The voters up there, like it's like we can't figure it out. I'm like, but you just have to be from here. You have to know the area, right? You just do. We like people that are just going to be honest about who they are. They're going to lean into everything and they're going to own it. don't be a politician. Just but they want you to work. We want to see you at every freaking event everywhere all the time. Like that's it. That's a huge thing, man. So, are you? What is your answer when you go to see like someone like my father, a former Washington County sheriff? He was sheriff here for 28 years. Um, he's probably I don't know. I guess we didn't really talk about it that much, but I would probably consider him like an old school Republican. I don't even know what that really means. I don't want to go like say Reagan stuff because I don't want to put words in his mouth. I don't even know what that means either. But he's old school Republican. 70 upper 70s. He meets you. How are you going to relate to him?
Yeah. I think we have a great set of ideas that we're putting forward here. Fiscal responsibility, old school fiscal Republican. But I think the most important thing that we're pushing, and this is where we can really connect with the older voters, is we're pushing social conservatism. That's not something you see pushed a lot. And they grew up with social conservatism and they see all these blue-haired liberals on college campuses and professors telling you all this junk. When they see a young person that has their belief system, I've seen nothing but excitement. And I couldn't be more happy if I was elected to represent every single voter. And I a lot of times I talk about young people and I'll say the economy has been difficult for young people because it has. It's also super, super difficult for the older generation who's on fixed incomes. These are someone who saved their whole life. They've been working hard, and inflation just takes their savings to basically zero. It hurts them for being fiscally responsible. They care as much about government spending as any young person.
And social conservatism, you're right. That was something that you really couldn't talk about when you were conservatives over the last maybe decade, maybe not quite that long. But that was it. As it's gone on, that's something you had to kind of shy away from. And that is something that we've seen absolutely. And there's been so many other versions of Charlie Kirk. Nobody is another Charlie Kirk, of course. But he was the first one, at least in my lifetime, that I've ever seen, didn't shy away from it. And this is exactly where I thought and where I felt, and he based everything biblically. Speaking of that, you said you went to a Catholic church when you were younger. What role has your faith played in your life?
I mean, it is the guiding star in every decision I make. It's the way that I know we're going to get attacked. Who knows what's going to happen during an election, a campaign? Being strong in your faith and having a strong family, which I have. A lot of people like to talk about the Duffy side. I'm not actually related to them. I married into them. My
Yeah, just to
family,
be clear. Yeah.
yeah, my family are Latin mass going conservatives in Wausau. They are as good of a family as you could ever hope for. And faith and family are the things that allow you to make the right decision, even when it's extremely difficult. And, who knows what's going to be asked of you in Congress? I've seen how these lobbyists kind of work the game to try to get you to vote their way. If you don't have guiding principles, if you're not strong in your faith, those temptations will get you. And my wife and I go to church every single Sunday. It's like our security blanket. This is
Yeah.
the way we can deal with all the evil of the world. And honestly, I think most of it's based out of DC. So we're walking into the lion's den if we get elected. You can't do that without the shield of faith.
Well, amen to that. Um, but you do understand with Evita's having 8 siblings and your Catholic background, and you're going to be required to pump out like 12 kids. You understand that, right? Between
Well,
Catholic and that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Honestly, I'm totally ready for it.
yeah.
I love kids. I love being around the Duffy's kids. They're such amazing kids. So maybe that's swayed my view of it. I've never been around bad kids, but yeah, yeah,
How,
it's all about starting a family.
how many siblings do you have?
I only have one sibling,
Okay.
and she's in Chicago, and she actually got flipped into a liberal on the college campuses. That's why I can't stand the college campuses.
Mm.
But I will say, I love my sister. Even though she's a Democrat, it just means I
Yeah,
pray for her
yeah.
more.
Well, okay. Your mom and your dad, what do they do? You said they're still in Wausau, right?
Yep, they both are retired, so I'm very happy
Awesome.
for them. Believe it or not, they had me when they were in their mid 40s. So they're almost, I think my dad's 69. So
Wow.
they couldn't be happier to be retired and kind of taken a step back from the world, because the world is becoming a very it's a very transitional time right now, and that's why we need people who are ready to stand up to evil in this moment.
Going back to your website, alfonso4wisconsin.com, uh, I don't know. I don't know how many hundreds of campaign websites I've seen over the last decade. Most of them are like fair to good. Every once in a while, some are like, "Eesh, not super great. And it's rare that they're like really good. No kidding. This is really good, actually. I really like your big hero, the hero image is what it's referred to as, but it's just a big video of your campaign thing, which I thought was great. But in there, so I watched that yesterday, or I'm sorry, earlier this morning. I didn't know about your Cuban ties because I'm like, why am I seeing like Castro? Because it was on mute. Like, there's a button where you can hit like the play sound, but it doesn't default to that right away. So it was just on. I'm like, wait, what in the world? Why is Fidel Castro in your launch video? So explain that.
Yeah, so my grandfather came to the country in 1956 as
Wow.
a political refugee from Cuba. Now, he wasn't, you know, on the boats escaping at the last minute. He saw the writing on the wall. But growing up with someone like that in my life, I knew the dangers of socialism from as early as I can remember. And I always thought when I was young, socialism, communism, that's something for Eastern Bloc European countries. That's not
Yeah.
something for America. Look at New York City. There is a Marxist Muslim who is about to be elected the mayor of the financial capital of the entire world, New York City. This is home. And now some Wisconsiners might say, that's New York. New York's a mess. And they're totally right. New York is a nightmare.
Hmm.
Could never want to be there ever again. But look at Madison. Those socialist ideas are infecting the campus, and then it infects the young people who are moving all over the state. And we need people who know Marxism just by the smell of it, and who will fight it tooth and nail at every turn.
When your grandpa came in 1956, how did you say he got here again? What kind of was it an asylum? Was it?
No, so
No.
he actually immigrated here legally, legally, very important. And he saw the writing on the wall. This is during all of the tumultuous times of Cuba. He just had had enough. He came with his wife, who was pregnant with my father,
Yeah.
and they set up a life in Chicago, Illinois. Probably one of the only Cubans who didn't stay in Florida, but he went to
Yeah, that's
Chicago.
true. Okay, that's where I was just wondering if 1956 grandpa coming from Cuba to America could, if your grandpa today wanted to come to America the exact same way that he came to America in 1956, would he have been allowed to do that right now?
You know, I don't know.
I
And
don't know.
I would say that America was in a different place back then. America was the shining star for the entire world. That's not us now. Like I said, almost $40 trillion in debt. Americans need to focus on Americans. We have elected officials who are more concerned about other countries than they are about United States citizens. And I will tell you that illegal immigration is something that has been destroying the workforce in the United States, but also legal immigration. H-1B visas. Nothing is crushing new college kids more than the H-1B visa system. And they'll say, oh, it's just for the Elon Musks of the world. Well, that's crazy because I've seen it being used to fill part-time accounting jobs. It's very scary. And I don't know if my grandfather would be able to come to the United States right now, but I would tell you that that's not the important thing. The important thing for an elected official is to think about the United States citizens.
Mm. I think I saw on your website. I just put my laptop away, but I saw somewhere else in there about ending corruption in Congress. What were you referring to there?
I'm referring to all sorts of corruption, but specifically stock trading. I think it's such an easy fix to not let the people who are in charge, essentially in charge of inflation, they'll say, "Oh, well, we need to put our money in the stock market because we have to protect ourselves from inflation." You're causing it. You don't need to do that. I mean, it's a joke.
Yeah.
But here's a promise that I will make. I know Congress people can be very difficult on that matter. I will put legislation forward when elected to end congressional stock trading. But if that gets shut down, I personally will never trade a stock when I am in Congress. My wife will never do it also at Nancy Pelosi. It's her husband that does it. But that's the promise that I will make the voters.
Are you ready for this?
I like to think I am. No one can be ready for something until they jump into it.
Yeah.
Just like marriage. People asked me that when I was getting
Yeah.
married at 22. Are you sure you're ready to get married? I would tell them, I don't know. I think so. And
Yeah.
no one's ready for anything until they jump into it.
Well, I mean, really, if you look at everything, well, you need to have this much money saved. You should probably have a house. I mean, like this happens all the time when it's like you're ready to have kids. Like, when should you have kids? Well, if you actually wait to the perfect time, you're going to be like 60 to have
Yep.
kids. I mean,
Yeah.
so come on, man. Just you have to. How many other have you looked into it? How many other congresspersons that we've had that were 25?
I looked at it,
There's got to be at
something in
least
the
a
bulk.
dozen, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was about 10 when I looked at
Oh,
it,
sure.
but there's actually an interesting one where the youngest ever elected was 22. And I forget which state it was from, but
Oh,
they basically just said, "Screw it. This is the guy we're electing. We're not interested in your
yeah.
rules." And he was a congressman for a very, very long time.
Well, and it's not even unheard of, especially with the Northwoods with Romaine Quinn. I'm sure you know Senator Romaine Quinn. I mean, he was mayor at, I don't know, at 19 or something like that, and then in the assembly at a very young age. I can't believe that he's been in politics as long as he has, because he's still so sticking young, and it drives me nuts that he's accomplished so much. And
Well, talk
it's
about rock stars.
yeah, yeah, Romaine.
He's a quite exceptional man.
Yeah, yeah, he is. All right. We have time for one more question here. Does your faith inform your stance on immigration and healthcare? If so, how?
It absolutely does. Catholics have an idea called subsidiarity, which
Hmm.
basically says you focus on your family first, those closest to you. Then you go out as you can. I always focus on what's best for my family, what's best for the 7th District of Wisconsin, what's best for the state of Wisconsin, and then the country. And that's how my opinion was formed through my faith on those issues. Some might say, because you see Pope Leo take kind of a weird stance on immigration where he says, America should just have free borders. And I would say that he's not paying attention to the very Catholic principle of subsidiarity. You need to take care of those closest to you before you can take care of the rest of the
Huh.
world.
I'm going to look into that one. Subsidiary. I'm going to look into that. That's interesting. Um, what we're about up to our time here. Actually, we went past it already, which we kind of knew we were going to anyway. What did you want to make sure we talked about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
The one issue that you didn't bring up from our website that is
Mhm.
one of the most important to me is the federal government was never written to be as big as it is. So if I'm elected to Congress, every single vote I make will be centered on bringing power back to the states. It is so important if the further the governing body gets from the people it's governing, the more tyrannical it gets. Look at your local sheriffs. They're great guys. They want to take care of the community. You get high up, you see like what's his name, Comey from the FBI. You think he cares about Wisconsin residents? I doubt it. So I would like to see government shrink to the state level, to the local level, because it's much more difficult for your friend down the street to be tyrannical than it is from some unelected bureaucrat in DC.
Sure. What kind of one advantage I think you will have with your between obviously your wife and your mother-in-law and your father-in-law is, I would think anyway, kind of this safety net, this guard rails where we've seen the traps. Like, we're familiar with that. I'm just saying there could be absolute advantage there or an assistance from them because, boy, walking into something like this, I think people could easily, and we've seen this, I should say, I've heard stories about this with just people in the assembly in Wisconsin. You go down, go out, maybe go out for drinks with some people, and their lobbies, next thing you know, you're buddy, and we're going to give you money in your campaign. It's just kind of how it works, and you don't realize that it starts so small.
Yep.
But it can snowball, and you don't even realize that it's happening. So are you going to be relying, because if you're not, you absolutely should be, relying on some of your the knowledge that your in-law family brings to the table when it comes to this?
Absolutely. And they've helped us build an amazing team that we think we can avoid a lot of the pitfalls of first-time
Yeah,
candidates, regardless of the age. But the most important advice I got is that it's all about faith and family. If you stay true to your faith and you stay true to your family, the rest will take care of itself. Because in the end, it's not about what happens on this earth, it's about where you go when you die.
amen, brother.
And as long as you keep that in your head, it's not about getting reelected, it's not about getting elected a first time, it's about being right with our Savior in heaven. And that's how I operate.
That's all right. Obviously, I only have like two strong opinions about anything, and that is my faith and my wife. You'll never talk me out of faith. You can argue all day long, provide anything you want, but I believe the Bible's highest authority, and that's something I'm unapologetic for. I am a biblical apologetic on that. And my wife's the single greatest person on the planet. Everything else, I'm pretty much just not too far off of the middle. I could probably one argument away from at least getting on the fence, like in the middle of it. But those two things, yeah, you're speaking my lingo on that one, man. Faith and family, that stuff is huge. Thank you so very much for coming on. We'll have you on again next year because that's coming up in like 2 months, by the way. And we can go through a lot more of your campaign, how that is going, your policy stuff and vision and views for the 7th Congressional District. What are you doing tonight for Halloween? What are you guys doing?
That's a good question. I got to ask Avita. She's the plans maker. So I'm sure she has something cooking that she hasn't told me about.
Yeah. Are you?
Or maybe even worse, she did tell me and I don't remember. So who knows?
Well, now she knows that. Oh no. Yeah, I just didn't know if you hit that age where we don't go out for trick or treating anymore. We're the stay at home, turn the light on, and hand it out. For me, honestly, I stay home, but I turn all the lights off because I don't want anybody coming in my house. Are you kidding me? Go to the store and get your own candy.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky you haven't been teepeed. That's a good way to get teepeed.
Oh, is it really? Oh no.
Trick
All
or
right.
treat. That's where it comes from.
All right. Well, fine. I don't know. I'll throw in some cigars or something. That'd be fine. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Awesome. Hey, man. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. Special thank you to Republican candidate for U.S. Congress in Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District race, Michael Alfonso, for taking the time to come on for a chat today. I'll see all of you back here on Tuesday, November 4th, when we will welcome back to the show our very good friend, author of the book Land Rich, Cash Poor, My Family's Hope and the Untold History of the Disappearing American Farmer, Brian Reisinger. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching and have a blessed day.